Hey guys, HarryWilmington here. From here on out, I am your introvert dating coach. And today we're going to talk about negging, specifically why it is that negging a woman when you're going out on a date with her may not be the best way to try to get attraction from her or get her to like you. Now, for those of you that don't know what negging is, there's this big thing in the red pill community that was taught years ago and is still used by some guys now. And it's this thing idea of neg hitting a girl. And what that basically means is where you give her like a backhanded compliment or you give her like a slight insult as a ways of basically putting her down a little bit so that way she doesn't feel superior to you, at which point you can then, I guess, look like the alpha and you can make her feel like you're higher up on the chain than she is or whatever. And so, admittedly, this is a thing that can, has, and does work. You can go to a bar, for example, and say a woman that's like a solid 10 and thinks she's the business. You can say a little thing to her that makes her slightly insecure enough to where she's not as sure of herself. And now suddenly, for some reason, she's supposed to like feel, because you say it in a jokey way to where it's like she knows you're joking, but it still hits her insecurities enough to not feel like she's above you. And then you can like get in there and look at the alpha and do what you got to do to get her interested and stuff like that. So I can't say this is not a thing that does not work, because it can, but there are also some seriously negative consequences to negging as it pertains to a woman's self-esteem. And my thing I've told you on this show time and time again is that I don't believe in being sarcastic towards a woman in a mean way that's going to make her feel like less than herself. I don't think that that's necessary to be able to attract a woman. But more importantly, you really don't know what it is that that woman's been through, or her self-esteem, or how she views herself, to where your negative comment about her, even if you're just joking, could actually cause her to be set off in her head this whole distraction and feeling really, really bad about herself. And you don't know the kind of psychological trauma a woman may have had in her past to where she might not take that neg hit as jokingly or as positively as you would like her to. So I found this interesting article on Yahoo that I'm going to read to you. I'll read parts of it. And the article is by a woman. And the article is called, "I Was on a Perfect Date Until His Comment About My Face Caused Everything to Unravel." I think it's an interesting article because it's going to let you guys see just an example. It's an extreme example, but an example of what could be going on in a woman's mind when you're making various comments about her body or her job or her lifestyle in a negative way, even if you're just joking, okay? So, article starts off like this. She says, "My first date with Jordan was moving along seamlessly when out of nowhere, he made a strange joke about my appearance. Quote, 'Wow, good thing you don't have anything in your teeth,' he said while I was busy laughing. 'Because your teeth stick out so much, it's like, whoa.' He imitated what I apparently looked like, something between a piranha and a chipmunk. For most people, this might not have been a big deal. But for me, someone with a long history of body dysmorphic disorder, this was devastating." So, this guy, going into this little comment that he made, he was probably thinking like the way he was going to say the joke or whatever was going to be cute and was going to maybe make her feel kind of weird, but also it'd be kind of funny, or that maybe he thought that she already knows that she looks a certain way when she's laughing hard. But little did he know that this woman had a history of body dysmorphia, and she's going to go more into what that meant for her. But people that already have body image issues or self-conscious about certain parts of their body looking a certain way, the last thing that they want to hear is some kind of comment about their body, usually positively or negatively, but especially in a negative way, because all it's going to do in their head is highlight this flaw that they already knew that they had, that they were hoping nobody else noticed. And by you noticing it, now you're making it a big deal to her, and she's going to feel some kind of way about that. Continuing on, she says she met Jordan on a dating site, and she says Jordan's profile pictures revealed a handsome man with deep hazel eyes, yada, yada, yada. He was divorced, living in Wisconsin. So they agreed to a date. I had no sooner agreed to the date than my anxiety kicked in and I began obsessing over my appearance. Dating with body dysmorphic disorder has always been excruciating. So then she goes into what that means. Basically, it falls under obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a preoccupation with one or more perceived defects or flaws in physical appearance that are not observable or appear slight to others. Hers revolves around her face, specifically nose, jaw, and teeth. She says, like other mental illnesses, BDD varies in its severity, affecting everyone differently. Left untreated, it can lead to devastating effects, including anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. She says, though my obsession with my facial defects never ceases to exist completely, it has been at a minimum for the few months preceding my date, giving me enough confidence to say yes to Jordan. In fact, as I got ready to go out, I found myself unexpectedly excited as I dug out my high-waisted black pants, new silver silk top, and dangling sequin earrings. Putting on my makeup, I carefully played up my eyes with a dusty mouth shadow and highlighter above my cheekbones, attempting to draw attention away from the lower areas of my face. I must have thought I looked decent enough because I took a selfie and posted it to Facebook. Okay, so what she's saying here is she's already saying she's making it a point to play up the upper half of her face because she's not very confident in how the bottom part of her face looks. So she's already consciously aware. This is what I tell you guys. You're not going to ever be completely sure of what parts of a woman are bugging her. Now, you might go out with a woman and say, hey, she looks perfectly fine. Her shoulders are great. Her stomach's great. Her face is great, whatever. But you don't know if, like, let's say you don't know if she's sensitive about her feet. So she takes off her shoes one day, takes off her socks. And you're like, oh, I noticed your pinky toe is smaller than most other people's pinky toes. You might not be aware that she was obsessing over her pinky toe this whole time and that she was afraid in part to take her shoes off in front of you because she was afraid of what you might say about her pinky toe, and you've just said it. So I tend to err on the side of when I first go out with a woman, I compliment the things that she puts on her body, her earrings, I compliment her shirts, she's wearing a hat of some kind, but rarely ever do I go into specific parts of the body until like after I've taken them to bed. At that point, I've seen all of them. Now, if I decide to say, by the way, I think your lips are really cute, your nose is really whatever, then I'll make those kind of comments. But never, ever, ever do I ever say, oh, and by the way, that mole on your foot, it looks kind of weird. Or, oh, what's with why is your one breast size bigger than the other? And it looks kind of awkward. Like, think about this. Ask yourself this question anytime you're about to say a comment to a woman. Is this a comment that is going to be positive or negative? Is this a comment that I'm going to say that's going to make her feel great about herself or is going to make her doubt herself? If it errs on the side of something that could possibly make her doubt herself or feel self-conscious about something, then I typically err on the side of not trying to say it, because for all the talk about neg hitting being such a great thing, there are so many other ways that you can attract a woman and even make yourself look like a masculine guy without having to do it to the detriment of her self-esteem, okay? Even for those women that are 9s and 10s that think they're the hot stuff or whatever, you can be joking, playful, you can show that you're a masculine guy, you can do all these other things without having to say, oh, and I'm also gonna say some comments to tear this woman down as well. So let's see what happens with her, okay? So they go to dinner at the Bonfire Grill, standing at the bar, they greet. He talks about his life and his divorce and his 2 kids. So she goes, 45 minutes later, I reveled in how well our date was going. Jordan was gregarious and funny to the point of being entertaining. I was laughing so hard, both my stomach and face hurt. He was also a passionate conversationalist with a deep voice and British accent I found uncommonly attractive. Even more endearing was his attentive disposition. He asked me questions about my work and complimented me on raising my daughter alone as a single mom. So, they're in the second hour. His bar stool inched closer to hers. They're now facing each other. They're brushing knees. She says he reached out and took my hand. I relished our mutual attraction as we planned for a second date. So he was already in there. I don't even recommend to you guys to plan dates, the next date on a first date, because you want to leave a little mystery or whatever. But he was even able to get to that step where he's like, hey, we're having a good time. Let's plan a second date. So she's feeling him. He's been nothing but nice the whole evening. And then, a moment later, things took a surprising turn for the worse when Jordan made the joke about my teeth. I immediately froze up in shock. Before I could gather myself, he made another joke-like comment about my nose. I tried to play it off, but it was too late. A freight train had been let loose, and it was headed to a deep, dark oblivion. And this is what I tell you guys, is that, again, you don't know what women are going through. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what they're feeling self-conscious about. And so any little comment that you think will just be like a little side joke or whatever, it's no big deal. And also I get, because realistically, when we're talking to other guys, oftentimes guys that you are friends with, that you've been friends with for a long time, you'll probably joke on about a bunch of stuff, about him balding, about him having a weird looking shirt, about the bad job he did on the date the other day. Like, these are things that guys do that we know it's not going to hit us personally. We don't really take too much offense to it. And that's not to say that there aren't guys out there that don't get offended by these slight insults. I know for me, I don't personally like hearing them, which is why I don't dole them out either. But most guys will take and just kind of like, okay, they're just joking, whatever and whatever. But for women, Women in their circles don't typically spend their time jokingly insulting their best girlfriends. They just don't, because they know on a subconscious level that they're not sure what that friend's going to be too sensitive about. So they really try not to err on the side of pointing things out or making insults about things. Okay. But so all that to say, you cannot communicate with women that way on a date. I mean, you can do it. And for some women, they might, feel a little insulted, but then it might work to lower their self-esteem and you get them. But do you really want to date a woman like that is like, her self-esteem is so low, you can just insult her and she takes it? Like, this is not a way that you have to go about trying to attract women, okay? Because again, you don't know. As you see here, this woman went from having a great time on a date to now, she has to now be in her head about just how ugly this guy possibly thinks that she is, even though he probably actually finds her very, very attractive because he said and did the wrong things, okay? Continuing on, he says, she says, I'd never been on a date with anyone who had commented on one of my BDD focus areas, and I had no idea how to respond. In an instant, all the pain of my struggle rushed back to me, and I went into flight mode. Jordan quickly picked up on my change of demeanor and followed with, don't get me wrong, you're cute as hell, but I was already searching for the exit. So then she talks about her struggle with dysmorphic disorder. She was 28. She didn't psychotherapy. She said she had anxiety and daily obsessiveness for months before she finally agreed to medication and therapy. A year later, I was no longer having panic attacks, but the obsessions were still strong. I now had depression added to my diagnosis from struggling so long with no reprieve. Unable to see the light at the end of the tunnel, I became desperate. I didn't want to die, but I didn't know how much longer I could go on suffering. The mental pain had become more than I could take. And these are things, by the way, that women aren't going to tell you on a first date. Like, if a woman's had a history of depression, anxiety, of not feeling good about herself, because she's aware that she has to put on her best self on this first date, all these things you're not going to know about. These are kind of conversations that most women, as they get to know you more and they start to go on more dates with you and you eventually become the boyfriend or you get close to becoming the boyfriend, they'll start opening up about these things because they want you to really know who they truly are and some of the stuff that they've been through. So that way, you know them better. So if when things pop up in terms of her attitude or her emotions, you'll kind of know why. And also because it's to see if she can trust you with those things and then still decide to choose her, okay? But all that to say, just because women aren't telling you that they went through these things on a first date does not mean that she's never experienced them. And you have to be aware of that because honestly, in this country, a lot of women have had to deal with self-esteem issues as it pertains to their weight, as it pertains to their looks, and they don't want to bring down the first date by bringing all this stuff up, but be aware that most women have gone through this and that making comments about it is going to make the majority of women out there probably not want to see you on a second date. Continuing, she says something about, basically she went through a fight for survival. It became really, really hard. And then over time, she read more books, took more medicines. She set out to retain her brain to think different thoughts and to put a hard stop to the devastating ones. Slowly, I started to have good days. Slowly, the fog lifted. And when I finally made it out of the dark 2 years later, I never wanted to go back. The pain of living that existential death was worse than living with an imperfect face. I decided it made no difference whether or not I was deformed. What was killing me wasn't the deformities, real or imagined, slight or major, but the meaning I'd apply to them. Jordan was perhaps insensitive and careless in his remarks about my face, but he certainly couldn't have known the weight of his words or the impact they would have on me. But at that moment, staying in his presence was too painful. I ended the date promptly, telling him I had an early morning the next day and needed to call it a night. He said, "Do you still want to get together midweek then?" he asked as I was putting my coat on to leave. "Sure," I responded, knowing I never would. So, think about this. How many of you guys out there have gone on a date with a woman, and to you, everything is going perfectly great, you're making her laugh, she seems to be having a good time, and then somewhere towards the end of the night, the mood shifts a little bit, and you notice that the mood shifted a bit, but not so much that you think it's going to completely ruin her attraction for you, and then the next time you try to call up for a date, you're not able to get one. That slight mood change could simply mean that you did or said something on the date that you're not aware actually turned her off or hit a certain nerve in her that made her feel really self-conscious about herself to where she's like, I can't now feel comfortable around this guy. A lot of times guys will say like some kind of sexual remark that we say way too early on that makes them feel weird, or we touch them in a certain way at a time where they're not ready to be touched yet. And all these things, if you're not aware of them, then it can result in this happening. Like with this guy, he probably is wondering what the heck happened, because as far as he's thinking, I went on a date, I made her laugh. Yeah, I made a little comment about her teeth or whatever. But other than that, we spent a whole hour and a half laughing and drinking, and my knees were touching hers, and we even planned up a second date. So since we already planned all that stuff and things were going good, then she's not gonna let this one little comment that I made like take away from the entire other hour and a half. Oh yes. That little comment you made can take away from that entire hour and a half that you had impressed her, because you're suddenly hitting at something that's so deep within her that she hasn't either dealt with or that she has dealt with and doesn't want to take from any other guy that she's dating, that you ruined your chances, okay? So this is why I really stress to you guys, hitting women and saying negative comments about them to their face on these dates is not the way to go. It's not gonna build attraction. They're not gonna find it funny. And you could be getting rid of a woman that actually would have dated you and was having a good time until you became insensitive, okay? So that's why I err on the side of, I don't do a lot of sarcastic jokes in the vein of sarcasm that leads towards something that's negative about them. I try to uplift with my words when I'm dating women. I say, you can do it, you're great, I like your outfit. I say positive things because I want positive results. If you say negative things to women, you're more apt to either A, get negative results, or B, end up dating women that have low self-esteem issues that ultimately for the long term of what you want in a relationship aren't gonna be good choices, okay? And it all starts with what you're saying on a date. So, to recap, women may not tell you about their various self-esteem issues. They may not tell you that they're sensitive about certain areas of the body. They might tell you a lot of things. Keep it on the side of being positive, and you're gonna have a better chance at being able to continue to date the women that you want to date, to impress them on dates, and to eventually land in a relationship. But the more negative you are, I can assure you, over a span of time, whether it's that first date, the third month, you guys are married, whatever, the more negative you get, the more of a negative experience you're gonna have, because as you're hitting at her self-esteem and lowering her self-esteem, it's not gonna make her wanna do positive stuff for you or think positively of you, okay? So stop doing that. It's annoying. Now, if you need help in ways on how to better communicate with women, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, check out some of my various programs, some of my various books that I have, and you will get a big education in how to communicate with women in a way that is more positive and will make them want to stick around with you a lot longer. Thank you for watching this episode of the Introvert Dating Success Show. If you found the info in this episode to be helpful, please show your support by clicking on the tip jar tab, the link of which can be found at the website and in the description below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on this episode, and catch new episodes right here on YouTube or wherever podcasts can be found. In the meantime, be sure to check out these other episodes so you too can learn to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.